faith is greater than your fear. And not faith in you, not faith in any mortal person or being, not faith in anything that you physically think that you can rely on, but faith in the all-sufficient one. Confidence and courage that God is I am, the great I am.
Cute, but dumb. Cute, but stupid.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of For the One podcast. I am your host, Nicole. If this is your first time joining us, I am so glad that you're here. And if you are a repeat listener, thanks for coming back and not being sick of me yet. I hope that you guys enjoy today's episode. I don't know what we're in for. I know I'm going to start off by... I gotta do the shout out. So if you watched last week's episode 19, I am recording these two episodes back to back, because I had to play a little bit of catch up, and I'll explain that whole thing in a minute. I'm gonna get into more like what my life has been, in the last couple of weeks here. But first thing is this cute little glass coffee, cup with this really cute design on it, and it has, I know you guys probably can't see it, but it says like you are, and it goes through kind of like adjectives: beautiful, victorious, enough, strong, never alone, and it gives scripture under each one. And my friend and big sister Lena, if you listen to this, shout out to you, and I love you so much, got me this from a birthday gift, and I just never like make myself coffee to come here and record the podcast, but I was like, you know what? I want to use my new cup and I want to have it on the table. So just another kind of piece added to the collection of my, small studio space of people just pouring into me, who love me, who support me and what I'm doing. Because when she gave it to me, she's very specifically was like, she's like, yeah, and you can use this like and put it on your table for the podcast, like put your coffee in it. And I was like, oh my gosh, yeah. So, Lena, thank you so much. I am sorry I didn't shout you out because it was also sitting here in the last episode. So I apologize I didn't get to that, but I love you. Thank you for this very cute gift. And I love having it on my table. So that's the first thing. Second thing is that I took a little trip about 2 weeks ago. I had a work trip in Boston, which is partially why like my podcast recording schedule has been a little disheveled recently. And I took a little trip to Boston, and I had never been there before. Boston, Massachusetts, not the other Boston. Was that New York, I believe? Yeah, Boston, Massachusetts. I had never been there before, and I absolutely loved it. I did not get, obviously, like this wasn't a vacation, it was like a work trip. So it's not like I had time to like go around and like explore for like days on end. But I got to see at least like a little bit of the historic sites, a little bit of the city. Went to the main like park that's there with like the Washington Monument, and they have like a pond with swan boats, and just really cute. Very historic, and I think that's why I really loved it, is the historic like architecture. So even their public library building is just mind-blowing. If you go to Boston, make sure you walk in the public library. Beautiful courtyard. It honestly feels like you're not even in the United States. It kind of feels like you're over like in Italy or France or Spain. The way that they just kind of have like this courtyard, the architecture, and then like you go in and there's just more beautiful like artwork and a grand like marble staircase, and these beautiful on the two sides of the staircase, this beautiful sculptures of lions on both sides. And you know me, I love lions, so I was like, oh my gosh, just so beautiful, just top to bottom, so much artwork, so much like historical just pieces in there. They had like some paintings on the wall, as well as like most of it are murals on either like the walls in the ceiling, painted murals. And it's just like, man, we just don't do stuff like this anymore. And it honestly like makes me sad when I think about it. Like I'm like, there used to be like a whole like kind of creative artist like sector of working people like dedicated just to do and deliver art pieces like this, like beautiful murals and these paintings and that depict like this, you know, very historic like moments. And I'm just like, where did that go? Like, when did we lose that? Like, I mean, I know like when we lost that, but it's just like, it's really sad to me. And now even further, which comes with my disdain and hate for AI technology, is like, now we're even losing that, like in the sense of like any like photographs, film, video, like even that, you know, artistry and creativity is kind of now being like overshadowed, overtaken by like, well, we don't need someone to take this picture. We can just like type in the computer like what we want it to do and it'll like develop this photo for us. And it's just like, I understand it's not a perfect system. I understand everybody's like, well, we're still like years away. Like it's still giving people like 6 fingers and like doing weird stuff. And I'm like, I get that, but like the premise is still the same. Like we already moved away from like this very like artisanal and even like the marble work, the stone work, like on top of the murals. Like somebody had to like out of stone chisel a lion. Somebody had to like architecturally design and like create and establish like this staircase and these pillars and these archways. Like all of that is like gone now. Like people don't do that. It's like, how fast for how cheap can we like slap this building up? How plain and white can we make it look? Like I really do hate modernism. I hate it in the context of like buildings and houses, especially. Like I don't like it. I like stuff with character. As much as I like new houses, in terms of like, you know, they're just usually better like made and built because, you know, we've advanced in how to do things and the materials that we use. I do like new houses, like new builds in that fact, but I really hate that there's no like architectural like creativity anymore. Everything is just the modern thing is just, it kind of is representative, I think, of our culture and our souls. It's like the walls are white, everything's black, no color. It's like, why are we like this? I don't know. That's like a whole other tangent, but Boston was absolutely beautiful. I really loved the city. I argue that it felt, at least in my experience, the couple days I was there, was like it seemed a lot safer than Cleveland. Nobody bothered you while you were walking on the street. Nobody stopped and was like trying to like ask for money. Nobody was like, now there were homeless people there, but they kind of were kept to themselves and they, you know, they just were doing their own thing. And not at one point did I feel unsafe or like on edge or anything. Also, there's so many people on the streets at all time. Like it's just crazy. Like coming from like my experience of like walking like through downtown Cleveland, like in Boston, there's just people constantly. Even the one day when it was raining there's just people constantly on the street. Whether they're like going to or from work. I know there's a lot of like colleges that are near there. So there's a ton of college students like constantly walking. Just very different from like the city experience I'm used to here. So I really enjoyed it. I definitely want to go back as an actual more like vacation and get to kind of do some more touristy things. I did get to go on an excursion where we saw like the site of the Boston Massacre. We saw Paul Revere's grave. You know, those type of really significant cultural spots, which is also like really cool. Like Cleveland obviously is like an older city. I understand it's not like the West Coast where it's like, everything there is like pretty new because just the way that people, migrated east to west here in the United States over, a couple hundred years. But Cleveland has history, and so like there are cool parts. I'm not saying like, oh, we don't have any historic buildings. I'm not saying that, but there is something different about, oh, like Cleveland has like Industrial Revolution history. Like, oh, this was like John D. Rockefeller's like house at one point. Like there's that, which like, okay, that's cool, but it's like a whole other thing when you're literally standing on a spot where you're like the war was here. Like the Revolutionary War like started like in this area, or like you're standing on a spot where like British soldiers shot at like a couple of the colonizers, like in the Boston Massacre. Like you're literally standing, you're like George Washington like was right here. Like Paul Revere like went down this road as he was like fleeing from the British, like shouting, "The redcoats are coming." Like it's just like a different level of like history, and that's like really cool. And like I can only imagine like it's probably times like 100 when you go obviously over to other parts, in Europe or like the Middle East, like to see like or to be in areas that are even more deeply historic than that. But I don't know, it was just really cool because I don't think I've ever really been in a spot like in terms of like the wealth of like American history that is like on those streets. But then it's just funny because like you're in the midst of like having this super like weird moment where you're like, oh my gosh, this is where like so and so would have stood, and like this is where this happened. And you're like walking down these streets, but then there's like a Dunkin' Donuts, and then there's like a bar, and then there's like a Huntington Bank, or not Huntington, but like any sort of bank or whatever. And it's like a weird like split like feeling in your brain where you're just like, it's such a mix of like all this historic preservation, and then there's like all of the new stuff, and you're just like your brain's trying to like rationalize it. But yeah, I love Boston. It was a very nice city. People really do have the accent. I really thought that maybe it was exaggerated on like film and like TV and commercials just for like comedy, or but it's real. No, it's real. Like the Boston accent is very real, and I found that out firsthand. So I had for the first time ever clam chowder. I now fear that all other clam chowder is ruined for me, because it was so good and I never had it, and now my expectation of clam chowder moving forward is like all the way up here, and I hear that there's a lot of bad clam chowders, so I fear that I'm never gonna quite reach the pinnacle of clam chowder again, but very good. A lot of good food, really good people that we worked with, and yeah, it was overall like a great trip. So yeah, I was in Boston. So obviously, couldn't record that week while I was gone because, I wasn't here for most of it. Yeah. And then I got back, and then we've had like an interesting week. Some things are going on health-wise that I am in the throes of trying to figure out. And it's been a roller coaster of emotions. A lot of frustration, and I have a platform, so I get to say what I want to say in this mic, which is nothing revelatory and nothing new, what I'm about to say. And I'm sure a lot of you have felt this, that our medical system is just beyond messed up. Insurance is, for the most part, I would say basically a scam. Specifically, I'm talking health insurance. I mean, all insurance is basically just like a big, like, I'm paying for this every month just in case, or what if. Like, we know that that's insurance in general, but specifically health insurance is really, it's really in a sad state in this country. And for us being like one of like the top, countries, and for us being the country that spends the most on healthcare, and yet it's still so like it's so much of a broken system. Um, it's really frustrating, and it's really sad, and it's really frustrating that I feel like nobody's talking about it. I haven't really heard in the Trump administration like anybody talking about healthcare reform. And my mom and me were talking the other day, and we both kind of were like, why is that? Like, and I'm like, honestly, it's probably because nobody has a good answer, because there's not even really any other system in the world that you can look at and be like, oh yeah, like they're doing it so much better. I know the temptation is to look at places like Canada, places in Europe that have universal health care. That system's not great if you are actually like sick with any sort of like cancer or disease. It's great if you like break your arm or if you have strep throat. Sure, it works fine. But if you actually have like a more long-term like disease, illness, sickness, it's really not that great of a system. I've heard, some horror stories of people in those countries. I know a lot of people from Canada actually, like I've heard if they are diagnosed with something like cancer, they try to come down here to the States for care. And so there's no perfect system. I'm not saying there ever will be a perfect system, but it's like we can't go full universal health care, and we can't keep doing what we're doing now. So it's kind of like, what's the answer? Like, what's the middle ground? And it's hard when a big portion of what you're fighting is greed. Insurance is a very profitable business, and there's a reason for that, because people are paying a lot of money for coverage. And then, me, when I had health insurance, and then even people that I know now that work, corporate 9-to-5 jobs that have health insurance through their company, half the time, like they don't even want to actually use their insurance because it's going to cost them more money to use the insurance. And that's kind of where I was finding myself, which is why I got rid of it, because I'm like, I'm paying this premium per month, which is already super outrageous. And then if I go and actually utilize it, if I actually need to go see a doctor, if I actually need a blood, panel done or anything like that, then you're paying co-pays, which don't count towards your deductible, on top of that. And then you're paying, percentages on top of that. And the deductible's like astronomical. Like mine, last time I had a plan, I believe it was like $9,100, something like that. Basically between $9,000 and $10,000 was the deductible. So it's like, okay, so I'm paying, let me do just some basic math. It was basically going to be like between like $450 and $470 a month for me to have insurance this year. So let's just do $450, which is $5,400 a year. And then let's just say the deductible is $9,000, just for round numbers. So that's $14,400 a year, potentially, that you are paying between the premium and then if you even meet your full deductible, which the thing is, unless something catastrophic happens, most people are not actually meeting that deductible, which means every time you're seeing a specialist, oh, there's a $150 copay. Oh, every time you do a blood panel test, well, that's $80 or $100. And then every time you do this, and then you're still paying for medication. Like, yes, it might be discounted, but you're still paying. It's not a realistic system that most people, especially in this economy, are able to afford. It's not affordable. It's not attainable. It's not affordable. And I know a lot of the doctors, I actually have had a couple of videos in the recent week come up of multiple doctors complaining about insurances. The one doctor specifically, this was crazy. So this is going on too. where basically he ordered that this patient that was coming in for abdominal pain get a CT scan. The insurance basically, and this was his complaint, it's not even like that they didn't like approve the CT scan that he wanted to do. It was that they basically stepped into the role of doctor and they were like, we're not going to pay for a CT scan until you do an ultrasound. And then if you still can't like diagnose like your patient how you need to, then we'll approve the CT scan. So he's like, they're telling me how to do my job. Somebody from the insurance company is telling him how to be a doctor. And then he explained to us, like, he was like, this patient, the things that I was concerned were wrong causing the abdominal pain. And he listed them. I forget exactly what they were. He was like, those don't usually show up on an ultrasound. He said they will show up on a CT scan. So instead of wasting more time and more money doing the ultrasound, he goes, I just wanted to send the patient straight to the CT scan because of all these other things that like led me to believe this is probably where I'm going to find the root of the problem. And the insurance company is like, no, we want you to do the ultrasound first, even though the doctor is saying like the ultrasound's not going to detect what I'm looking for. And they're basically trying to tell him how to do his job. So I have lost a lot of faith in the last 10 years in my personal experience, and then just in hearing a lot of this stuff in the medical system in this country. And I understand there are good doctors, there are good nurses. I'm not trying to say like blatantly like anybody who works in the medical profession is, you know, useless. More times than not, it has felt absolutely useless. It has felt like a waste of my time. It has felt like a waste of my money. And that's the thing is like when you're paying what you're paying for insurance and then again having to pay a copay or having to pay a percentage and you go and it's like a waste of your time, you get really angry about that. And so I'm just kind of in the throes right now as somebody who doesn't have health insurance, just trying to navigate what my options are, what's the best course of action, not only to like get me the help that I need, but also to do it in a financially like efficient way. And yeah, we're gonna kind of see how this shakes out. It's gonna be interesting. I've already cried a couple times this week because when there's already a lot of stress and anxiety, and yes, I will say fear around just what's happening to your body health-wise. And then on top of that, you're adding to people's loads the mental gymnastics of financial stress and, oh, I have to call this department. Well, now I have to call this department. Well, I can't schedule until I contact the financial department because I'm self-pay and they won't let me schedule until I do this, this, and this because I don't have insurance. Like it's a bunch of hoops that you have to jump through, which when you're already not physically well, which is why you're trying to go to a doctor, is very stressful. I've had similar experience in the past when I was doing mental health therapy. I remember being so frustrated between, and this was, again, back when I had, like an insurance plan, where I'm like on the phone with the insurance, but then I have to call the provider. And even though the insurance says that they cover this company, therapy, they don't cover this practitioner. This practitioner doesn't take my insurance, but these three do. Like, it's such a crap show. And again, when you're already on the edge mentally, like in that case, like you're seeking therapy, you're making it very difficult for people to actually like get help. And you're making the mental part of it more taxing, more stressful, because there's just, again, so many hoops to jump through. So, I am, and listen, this is just my opinion. I am not a financial expert. I am not a health expert, nothing. All I'm going to say is I personally, the more that I'm seeing, the more that I'm hearing, I personally think, I'm an advocate against health insurance. That's what I'm going to say. even though it's stressful right now for me because I'm trying to navigate self-pay, I'm still already seeing the dollar difference between potentially like self-pay and like insurance. And again, if you have a job that you have good insurance, please understand how blessed you are. And I hope you say a prayer of gratitude for that, because that is kind of a privilege that not a lot of people have. Because again, most people who even do have a 9-to-5 job, you're not self-employed, you're not a freelancer, that have insurance. I'm just hearing time and time again, like it's not really helping. And again, I've actually seen time and again, you're better off being self-pay. I've actually seen time and again that, now I'm not talking about if you are chronically ill and you're in and out of the hospital, or you get into a car accident, or you need a major surgery. That to me are like the only times that insurance actually probably is of any use and actually financially helpful. I am more talking like if you are just trying to like go to check up once a year, okay, maybe you have strep throat, okay, maybe, like you need a antibiotic one time, or, something like that. Stuff like that, like just for those of us who are like usually pretty healthy and you just have stuff pop up, I'm not on board for health insurance. I'm just saying. Time and again, even with the mental health space, I ended up paying less, and I found this out. So when I had the health insurance and I was doing therapy, my copay was like, I don't even remember. It was between like $80 and like $110, somewhere in that range. I then started going to therapy without insurance, and I was like, hey, I'm self-pay. And ouch. Sorry. I just like elbowed my hand weird. That sounds weird, but yeah, sorry. Okay. I just hit like a nerve and it reacted. Then when I went to self-pay for therapy, they had me at $65 a session. And I'm just like, so what's the point of insurance? So here's what I'll say. I'm not sitting here saying, oh, you have health insurance, just drop it and don't have health insurance. I'm just saying, weigh your options, actually look at your policy and actually understand like what you're paying for, what your deductible is, what the copays are. Understand that copays do not go towards your deductible. Okay? That's another thing that like people don't want to talk about. But again, I saw, the one time a year or two ago, I saw a specialist quite a few times a year. $150 a pop just to see a specialist was the copay. That deductible bar on like my app when I'm like looking at, my bills and how much I've spent in the year, that never went towards the deductible. Copays do not go towards the deductible. So keep that in mind when you're picking a plan as well. Is you might actually be better off like having smaller copays if you can, and then having, even if you are paying a little bit more out of pocket, if it's percentages, those apply. Like they'll cover 80, you have to cover 20. That 20% is going towards your deductible until it's met. I'm just using that as an example. All that to say, this stuff is not taught. People don't talk about this. I've had to learn a lot of this, and I'm still learning as I'm getting older and as I've had to like navigate this for myself. So just all I'm saying is, I'm not saying drop your health insurance plan. I'm just saying there's actually times and moments where I look at the provider and I say, and this was when I had health insurance. I said, if I want to do this self-pay and not run it through insurance, what's the cost? And again, I'm not saying every single time. I'm not saying in every single situation. There were more times than not that being self-pay, I actually was paying less than had I ran it through insurance and had to do the copay, the percentage, the whatever. So do with that what you will. I understand, obviously, if you are a family and you have kids, like, yeah, kids, like, yes, kids get sick a lot. Kids are kids. They might be breaking, an arm bone, playing on the swing set. Like, I'm not saying to not have health insurance. I'm not saying that it's wrong. I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I'm kind of talking to somebody in my shoes who's maybe single, or maybe you're just kind of married. It's just you and a spouse. And if you're just paying out the nose and you can't really even afford to use it, it might, I'm just saying weigh your options, to actually maybe just put it in an investment account, because HSA accounts, something I learned. I'm just like, guys, I'm just dumping knowledge on you. And you can go fact check me. Again, I'm not claiming to be a financial expert. I'm just telling you the conversations I've had and what I've learned over the years looking into these different options. HSA accounts sound great in theory. You have to have an HSA compatible insurance plan. And typically, like when I talk to somebody about it, like that plan, and I feel like this is kind of around the average, so I'm not, it maybe some are more, some are less, but they do put a cap on how much you can actually contribute to that HSA account. Which I think at that time it was like $4,000 for the year. So you could only contribute a max of like $4,000 into the HSA account anyway, and you had to have a specific plan, which on the open marketplace really was only one option for me at the time, that I would have had to pick that health insurance plan to even be allowed to have an HSA. So what I opted to do instead, and again, guys, I'm just being very honest and transparent. This year financially for me has not been a great year, but my plan, and my plan's still moving forward, and my plan this year, it just hasn't gone how I would have liked, was basically the money per month that I would have been paying. So let's say the $450 health insurance premium that I would have been paying anyway per month to have health insurance. I opened a money market account, which is on average going to earn you between 4 and 6%. So very identical to like a high yield savings. I would say even a little bit more than high yield savings usually. And I was literally, again, had this been a better financial year for me, I was going to take that $450 that I was making or would have been paying for the health insurance premium, and I would have just put it into the money market account, where it is at least accruing a decent percent of interest. There is no penalty if I put $450 into the money market account. There's no penalty if at any point in time I want to retract and pull out that $450. The only time there is a capital gains tax applied to that is if you withdraw. So let's say I only put $450 in, I let it sit for like 6 months and it made $50 in interest, and I wanted to drain the account, and I said, give me all $500 that's in there. I would have to pay capital gains tax on that $50 because that is the interest working. I didn't put 500 in, I only put 450 in, but I'm taking 500 out. I do have to pay tax on that $50. So keep that in mind. That is an option that I, again, in just like recent years had learned about, and that's just kind of how I have decided to set my life up. I'm also very non-traditional, so I'm really talking to people who are in my boat that are maybe independent contractors, freelancers, self-employed business owners, that don't have like a traditional like, oh, I'm just going to get health insurance through my workplace. So just keep in mind that that's an option where I basically was like, well, I can use this account in part, like, yes, as like a somewhat investment, but more as like almost like a hyper HSA account. And there's no limit per year to how much money you can put in there. So if I do end up having a really good financial year, I'm not capped at $4,000. I could put more than that in there. And and that way too, let's say another type of epic emergency happens that isn't medical, HSA you can only use for medical expenses. And I know that sounds like a pretty self-explanatory statement, but again, I'm just stating all this very plainly because a lot of people don't know. I didn't know this stuff existed until a couple years ago because, again, nobody talks about it. So you can only use HSA towards medical expenses. So the money market, the great thing about that is you can use that if, I don't know, like if you, I I don't know, or a homeowner and your refrigerator dies, like, and you're like, crap, like we really need a refrigerator. Like I need $2,000. You can pull that out of the money market account. Like if you have that in there, like, you know what I mean? Like I think it's just a little bit more like freeing, especially for somebody like me who doesn't have consistent income. I don't always know when my next paycheck's coming in. I don't always know when my next job is. It gives me just like a little bit of like an extra cushion of a little bit of like an emergency fund type situation, that is in addition, yes, to the money I try to keep in like a savings account, but I try not to keep too much money in a bank savings account because the interest isn't great. So it's like if I can also just pull the money out whenever I need access to it through a money market account and it's making way more interest, like I try to keep majority of my money in there. I don't know if that makes sense. And again, I'm not Dave Ramsey. I'm not a financial expert. I'm open to correction and critique and like more information, or better advice if somebody has it. But I'm just kind of like sharing with you guys like what I've just kind of structured this as, for me. And I know this is like a side I haven't really talked about on the podcast yet, is like I am self-employed. I am a freelancer. I do not work a 9-to-5 job. Like I know I've mentioned that, but like these are kind of the more nitty-gritty things that like go along with that on the back end that again, you don't know until you know, and you don't know until you're forced to find out. So all that to say, I know I'm like droning on about medical insurance and finances, and that's like boring, and I'm sure people don't want to listen to that, but and again, like go get advice from people. Like don't just listen to me. Don't just listen to one or two finance bro podcasts. Like just listen to a well-rounded, and seek counsel. Like that's what I did. I have a wonderful insurance like broker, love her. I sought her counsel. I was like, what's my options for an HSA plan? What's my options for like how much is this going to be? Like what like, go through the options with somebody. There's people out there like this is their job. And then like in terms of the money market account, I called my financial advisor. I, called him and I was like, hey, like, where is the best place for me to put money that I don't want to lock away in a retirement account that I can't touch until I'm 65, but I would like to make more than I'm making in my bank account, like in my bank savings account, And that was the conversation we had. And I asked him the questions. I'm like, and that's how I learned, like, oh, I can pull this out at any time. There's no penalty unless it's on money that I've gained through interest, and there's capital gains tax. Like we went through the whole thing. Like I just ask questions, find somebody who I think like sometimes like we're afraid of being like, I don't know, but it's like, I am pretty well versed in like what I'm well versed in. And so to me, I'm very much okay with being like, I don't know this about finances. I don't know this about investing. I don't know this about health insurance plans. Let me go to people who literally do this for a living, who this is their job. This is what they spend their time. I spend my time like, hyper focusing on things that like I do and that I'm good at. Let me talk to people who hyper focus on things that they do and that they're good at and get answers that way. Like just don't be afraid to ask for help. Because again, they don't teach financial literacy in schools. They don't teach about insurance in schools. Maybe some of you had like a pretty cool home ec teacher, and maybe you guys did cover some of this stuff. I took like a home ec like class. It was called like personal finance. We learned how to write checks. We learned kind of about budgeting, like very general sense, but insurance wasn't talked about. Retirement wasn't talked about. Taxes weren't talked about. Money market accounts, investment accounts were not talked about. So and especially if you're like me and you come from like a lower middle class family, which I feel like is majority of America most of the time, like if your what I'm saying is if your parents are not like uber rich, like I grew up, my parents were not investing. My parents didn't even have a savings account growing up. You know what I mean? Like these things, like you have to like learn these things sometimes on your own because you're not just put into environments necessarily where it's like dropped at your feet. So all that to say, health insurance is frustrating. The health and medical systems are very frustrating, and it can get daunting. On top of again when you're already like struggling with health and maybe not feeling great mentally or physically, and then you still got to like go through all this stuff. So it has been a week of that for me. It has been a week of, I'm gonna get real honest, guys. Sorry, this is kind of like turning into a slightly like untraditional type of flow of a podcast, but whatever it is, it's going to be what it needs to be. Hey guys, we'll be right back to the episode in just a moment, but first I want to tell you about an offer that I have for something called Primal Queen. It is a company made by a woman for women, and if you are a girly like me with something like PCOS, where you have imbalanced hormones, weird things with your cycle, low energy, unstable moods, Primal Queen has been shown to help so many women with all of those symptoms. Primal Queen is a supplement that is packed with vitamins and nutrients from beef organs. If you're like me, you're not going to be cooking up and serving liver on a random Tuesday for dinner. So if you want all of the benefits of eating organ meat, but you don't want to actually eat it, Primal Queen is the answer for you. So if you click the link in my description, you will get 25% off your first order of the starter kit of Primal Queen. It's a 30-day supply, and within the first couple weeks, you should be starting to notice things like improvement in your mood and improvement in your energy levels, and even starting to notice changes in your hormone balances. So if you would like to try this for yourself, again, that is 25% off if you use the link in my description for Primal Queen today. Now back to the episode. In the last podcast, I talked about questioning God, and that a lot of the times it will be a question that comes from the kingdom of darkness that tries to sow discord or unbelief or doubt or mistrust, specifically in God. And I did have a moment this week, and I'm recognizing, like, thank you, Jesus, that, like, he pulled me out of it. But I had a very raw moment this week, and I'm not ashamed of it. I don't think it's a sin. I don't think God's mad at me for having this. But in dealing with, like, these health concerns, and the fact that this was the first year that I hadn't had health insurance, and I remember when I made that decision almost a year ago to not have health insurance, I looked up and I said, God, like, you are going to have to take care of me. Like, I am trusting you to keep me healthy, to keep me safe, to financially provide if I do, like, need something at some point. Like, I'm going to need you to show up. And when I started to realize the severity of things in my body, and talk to my mom, talk to some other friends, people close to me, and it's like, Nicole, like, you need to go see a doctor. Like, this isn't even really, like, optional. Like, you need to go figure out what's going on. I had a very raw moment with the Lord. A little bit of a mentee bee. I had this week, where I was just in my room, and I was like, in just utter, like, disappointment and discouragement, I said something along the lines, out loud to him of, like, you said that you were going to take care of me. Like, I thought, like, I trusted you. I trusted you that I wasn't gonna need to go to a doctor like this. I trusted you that I wasn't gonna have to, like, have these issues. Not only not having health insurance, but also having the already financially taxing year that I've had. I'm like, I trusted you, and I've been trusting you as provider. I've been praying for healing over this situation, and I promise you guys I will get into the details and the depths of it once I kind of come out a little bit on the other side and figure out what is going on. I'm not hiding this from you because I'm embarrassed by it. I actually think once my suspicions are confirmed, we are going to be talking about it because it's uber important. But for right now, I'm remaining vague because that's not really the important part of this context of the story. But I've been praying for healing for how long? I have been trusting you all this year with my finances, and it has been tight, and we've been down to the wire on some things. And yes, you've always come through, but I, in a real David, like, raw moment, was like, I feel like you have let me down. I trusted you in this area, and now I'm in this situation. Things have gotten worse, not better. Things have gotten harder, not easier. And I don't know how we're going to do this. And I gave into fear in that moment. Fear financially of, I'm like, God, how much is this going to cost? How am I going to pay this? I'm going to go into debt. I'm going to have medical debt now because I'm probably not going to be able to afford, because I'm already, my foresight is already like, if this is what I think it is, if what's going on is what I think is going on, this is not a one appointment type situation. Just so we're clear. This is not me going to a checkup and having one appointment. This is going to be scans, whatever that looks like, testing, blood test, specialists, multiple, like, I don't know how far this is going to escalate, but I already am like, this is not a one appointment type situation. And so I'm already, foresight, I'm learning this a little bit. Having like very logical, intuitive foresight is very much a blessing, and also very much can be a curse. And in this case, it's a curse because I'm already going down the train of how I'm expecting this to go. And I'm giving into fear of not only the fear of what I am scared the diagnosis or the conclusion's going to be, but giving into the fear financially. And again, I had a very raw moment where I'm like, I trusted you with this. I trusted you with me. And it was a moment of questioning, like, where are you? What are we doing? So I had a mentee B, cried, weeping. And I think I needed that. And then immediately after that, I was like, I gotta worship. Because like I said in my last episode of where else would I go, that was a moment of what else am I gonna do? What else am I gonna do? I can't heal me on my own. Doctors, unless God ordains through his will for it to be through, advanced medical practices that we have today to heal me, which I do believe he uses, but doctors cannot necessarily heal me, and they certainly cannot heal me on their own without the Lord. Who's going to provide for me other than Jehovah Jireh, the provider? I cannot just simply provide for myself. Again, I believe any penny I make, any job I have, it is because the Lord has given it to me and said, I'm giving you these resources. I'm giving you this provision for you to be a steward of. And it's a moment of what else am I going to do right now? Because even though I am questioning where he is, I'm questioning if I can trust him. I'm questioning if he's going to show up how I need him to show up. I'm questioning, there is a moment where you're questioning, are you good? Are you still good? In the midst of all that, I know by now, and I have learned through trial and error, through adversity and affliction, through hardship, what else am I going to do other than literally throw up my hands and worship? What else am I going to do? Where else am I going to go, Lord? there is no other answer. There is no other resolve because the situation is not changing. The circumstance as of this moment is not changing and is not going to necessarily change overnight. My financial situation is not guaranteed to change. My health situation is not guaranteed to change. The health care system of the United States is not going to change overnight. So I can't control any of that. Going back to the last episode, I cannot control any of that. What I can control is my response when I am afraid, my response when I am stressed, my response when I am anxious. And I know the Bible says a million times over, do not be afraid, do not be anxious, do not worry about anything. We're going to read a scripture or two that talks about that here in a second. And I know that it says that over and over and over again. You know why it says that over and over and over again? Because he knows over and over and over again, we're going to feel afraid. We're going to feel anxious. We're going to be worried about something. And that's why he repeats it over and over and over again, from Old Testament to New. And so I do not believe it's a sin to be afraid. We're going to talk about this in just a second. But I do not believe it's a sin to be afraid. I do not believe it's a sin to be worried. I don't believe it's a sin to feel the stress of a situation. I think, and I don't even think it's a sin. I think it's a weight. Keep in mind, Paul talks about in one of his letters, like cast off all weights that basically like prevent you from running the race of life well and with endurance. Cast off all weights. So I believe that there are weights and I believe that there are sins. I do not believe that having a very human response to a situation that produces in you an emotion of fear, an emotion of worry, an emotion of panic or of stress. I don't believe that that's a sin. So many people, and I don't know who said it first, but, so many people talk about how emotions are basically little, like, warning flags. Emotions in your body are just indicators that there's something going on that needs addressed. I don't believe that that's a sin because God made us to have emotion. God has emotion. The Bible talks about how God is joyful, that God is angry, that God is grieved. These are emotions. That God is compassionate. These are all emotions. So if we are made in the image of God and God has emotions, we as humans, it is a God-given bearing of ours that we have emotions. And I don't believe that those emotions are sinful. Now, we could get into anger. We could get into a whole bunch of stuff. You have to be careful not to sin in response and in reaction to the emotion. So, the emotion itself is an indicator. How you choose to respond and react and treat other people in response and reaction to an emotion, that can become a sin, in which God is still abounding in so much grace, so much mercy, and so much kindness and willing to forgive us for. So I want us to look at this though, because I read this story, I don't even know, months ago probably. And I knew that there was going to be a time that we needed to talk about it. And what better day than today? I'm going to be in Mark 6 if you want to join me there. Of course, I'm going to mainly be looking here at the TPT version. So Mark 6 is it's kind of one of it's a long chapter. Long in terms of the number of verses. So basically what I want us to look at, and there's so much to be said about this. This could be like a whole sermon teaching just in and of itself, but mainly I want us to look at verse 49 through 50. So this is basically in Mark 6. you'll see, the titles, the headings probably in your Bible if you look at it. Starting at verse 30, there's a title and a heading that says, Jesus multiplies food to feed 5,000. So this is the miracle of the feeding of the 5,000. Jesus is teaching. All these people are there. They're hungry. They're like, we did not pack for a 3-day sermon series, Lord. Like, what are we going to do? And, they even are like, if we send them back to their villages, they're probably going to pass out on the way due to lack of nourishment. So just reading real quick in verse 34, the end of it says, so he taught them many wonderful things. Verse 35, late that afternoon, his disciples said, it's getting really late and we're here in this remote place with nothing to eat. You should send the crowds away so they can go into the surrounding villages and buy food. But he answered them, you give them something to eat. Are you sure? They replied. You really want us to go buy them supper? It would cost a small fortune to feed all these thousands of hungry people. And then Jesus says, how many loaves of bread do you have? He asked. Go and see. After they had looked around, they came back and said 5 plus a couple of fish. Then he instructed them to organize the crowd and have them sit down in groups on the grass. So they had them sit down in groups of hundreds and 50s. Then Jesus took the loaves and the 2 fish, gazed into heaven, and gave thanks to God. He broke the bread and the 2 fish and distributed them to his disciples to serve the people, and the food was multiplied in front of their eyes. Everyone had plenty to eat and was fully satisfied. Then the 12 disciples picked up what remained, and each of them ended up with a basket full of leftovers. Altogether, 5,000 families were fed that day. So, a couple things just from that. Mainly, in verse 37, it says that Jesus answered them, you give them something to eat. And then we jump down to when the miracle's actually taking place. It says, then Jesus took the 5 loaves and 2 fish, gazed up at heaven, and gave thanks to God. He broke the bread and the 2 fish and distributed them to his disciples to serve the people. And the food was multiplied in front of their eyes. So this is this is showing how a miracle works, which is in active participation with the Lord. The Lord is like, I will do the heavy lifting. I will do the heavy work. I am actually going to take these pieces, pray to my Father in heaven, break them, and then I'm going to hand you the small amount of portion that we have, and I want you to go serve the people. I want you to go use your hands, pass them out, hand these pieces to the people. And as you are serving the people, the food is multiplied to the point that every single person has enough to eat and is fully satisfied. And they had 12 baskets left over. One for each disciple whose hands were put into active participation in this miracle. Okay. That's not even like why I'm like talking about this chapter, but this is very important for us to understand what we're about to read. So then the very next heading after that story is Jesus walks on water. So basically everybody gets wrapped up. Jesus is like, hey, y'all, to the disciples, y'all go back on the boat. I'm going to go up to this mountain to pray. I will meet you on the other side. Go back across the lake on this boat. It says, as night fell, this is verse 47, the boat was in the middle of the lake and Jesus was alone on land. The wind was against the disciples and he could see that they were straining at the oars trying to make headway. When it was almost morning, we gotta pay attention to this because so many times, that was the other thing I wanted to say about the miracle of feeding the 5,000. I love that the disciples answer him when he said, you give them something to eat. They say, are you sure? You really want us to go buy them supper? It's going to cost a small fortune to feed all these people. We are so, in our human brains, sheep, we are so cute but dumb to the Father. He's probably like, oh, goodness gracious. Like when the disciples said that to him. Like we are so limited in our mindset. They're like, well, the only way we could feed all these people is like to go get them food. How are we going to do that? We can't afford that, Lord. We're so set in our like limited boxes of how something's going to happen. Okay? Keep just note ear that, okay? Dog ear that. And then what I just read, so verse 47 says, as night fell, the boat was in the middle of the lake and Jesus was alone on land. The wind came up against them and they were straining at the oars trying to make headway. As night fell. So that means it's evening time. Night is just happening. Then the very next part says, when it was almost morning, Jesus came to them, walking on the surface of the water, and he started to pass by them. So they have been straining all night. Like, are you seeing this? Night just fell. As morning is almost approaching, that's when Jesus shows up. So again, our timing, me asking, them probably asking, God, where are you? Lord, where are you? Don't you see us struggling? Don't you see us straining at the oars? Don't you see us just barely like keeping ourselves above water? Where are you? Okay. Shows up almost morning. Also, it gives a little footnote about the fourth watch of the night is what it says. Jesus came to them, walking on the surface of the water, and he started to pass by them. Now, when I first read that, especially in the NIV, the way it says like he almost like passed them. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like Jesus was just going to like walk on by? Like he's seen them in the spirit. He like, and again, because he can't visually see them all the way from the mountain, but this is, he's fully God and fully man. So the God part of him knows that there is a storm and he knows that they are struggling. Okay. This is back in, when it says in verse 48, the wind was against the disciples and he could see. Again, this is like a miracle in and of itself that he can see them. Again, not necessarily visually, but he knows that they're struggling. He knows when you're struggling. He knows when you're in the middle of the storm, straining at the oars. He is not blind. He's not oblivious to it. Okay. So, but then I was reading and it says he passed by them. So I'm like, are you going to tell me that he saw them and then he was just going to like walk on by on the water and like literally go to the other side and like peace out and like leave them to it to like figure out and like keep straining and keep struggling? No. Pass by is actually the same kind of term referenced. I believe it's in Exodus 33 when Moses is like, Lord, show me your face, show me your glory. And the glory of the Lord, the Lord's like, you cannot see my face. You will like literally die. Like, no. So the Lord actually covers Moses's face with his hand. And it says the glory of the Lord passed by Moses. Okay, so this is the same type of pass by as is explained in Exodus 33. So this is basically the presence of the Lord. Obviously, Jesus is in human form in this moment, but this is the presence, the glory, the Lord himself passing by. So it doesn't mean that he's just walking by and ignoring them. His presence is passing by them. As he's starting to pass by them, he's walking on the water. 49 through 50 says, when they all saw him walking on the waves, they thought he was a ghost and screamed out in terror. But he said to them at once, don't yield to fear. Have courage. It's really me. I am. 51 says, then he came closer, climbed into the boat with them, and immediately the stormy wind became still. They were completely and utterly overwhelmed with astonishment. Their doubting hearts, or the NIV translation says their hardened hearts, had not grasped his authority and power over all things in spite of just having witnessed the miraculous feeding. So they're even internally referring back to what we just talked about of the feeding of the 5,000, that their human little sheep-like brains had still not understood the authority that not only Christ had, but the authority that he had imparted to them to also have. So basically, and the TPT does like a great job of breaking this down. So I'm just going to read this instead of me trying to paraphrase. So specifically the footnote is on verse 52 when it says, in spite of them just having witnessed the miraculous feeding. They didn't understand about the loaves. That is usually the translation, like in the NIV, of what you would see. They didn't understand about the loaves. That is, they didn't understand the lesson that the miracle was meant to teach them, that God has the power to deliver us no matter what the limitation. Also, the miracle was that the bread multiplied in their hands. So they likewise had the power to rebuke the stormy wind and sail through to the other side, even if Jesus were to pass them. He wanted them to see things in a new light and know the authority that they now carried. The two lessons of the multiplied loaves were the following. 1, that Jesus had all power to meet every need. And 2, that the disciples carried this power with them, for the bread multiplied in their hands. They were also a part of the miracle. Now, all of this, wild. When you break all this down. What really gets me is right there in verse, like that little bit of 49 and 50. They saw him walking on the waves and they thought it was a ghost and screamed out in terror. So Jesus doesn't even look like Jesus to them in this moment. They cannot even recognize that this is the Lord. This looks like something that scares them. This looks like something that they're not expecting to see in the midst of this situation. And they're scared because it doesn't look like God. Dog ear that. Does not look like God. They scream out in terror. But he said to them at once, don't yield to fear. Have courage. It's really me. I am. The NIV does not necessarily say it like that. It says, do not be afraid, for it is I. Like basically, like that's how the NIV puts it. But this translation saying don't yield to fear. That word yield, I think, is very important. And bringing all this back to what I'm trying to say about this moment where I yielded to fear. That is what happened in that moment where I am saying, where are you? I am straining at the oars right now. I am trying to make headway in the middle of the storm. Where are you right now? Why are you not coming and helping me? And then, I'm not saying that this has even happened all at once in this week, but I already know that if it hasn't already happened, it's on the way. I already know he's on the way. I already know he's coming. I already know he's about to pass by. And in this specific metaphoric reference, taking the scripture and applying it to my situation that I'm living in right now, in the fear of the unknown of a diagnosis, in the fear of financial strain because of whatever's going on in my body, Jesus is on his way. He is going to pass by, and I may not even recognize that it's him in the exact moment that he comes. I may think it's something else. And there is an opportunity, there's a choice that I have to be scared here's the reality. The disciples were with him day after day, week after week, month after month. They just witnessed this miracle of 5,000 people getting fed, basically out of crumbs. They fed 5,000 people. And they still, in this moment, are not able to discern that this is the one that they have been following and listening to for weeks, for months. They still have a moment where they're like, I don't know what this is, and I'm scared of it. And then Jesus comes in, as he always does, as the comforter, and says, don't yield to fear, have courage. It is really me. I am. So there's a choice and a decision to make to yield to fear. Now, a lot of people say you cannot have faith and fear simultaneously. I don't necessarily believe that that's true. And here's why I say that. I think it's dangerous to be like, if you have fear, you don't have faith. And if you have faith, you don't have fear. I believe that one is always over the other. That's what I believe. I believe that two things, and those two things specifically, can be present and true at the same exact time. It's which one you prioritize. It's which one is triumphing over the other. Because in this moment, if you were to ask, if you were to like pause all of this commotion and all of this happening, and you were to ask the disciples, do you have faith that Jesus is the Son of God, that he's the Messiah, that he's the one, like, is this why you're following him? I guarantee you every single one of them would have said, yes, I believe that he is the Son of God. I believe that he is the Messiah that we've been waiting for. This is why I'm following him, because he is it. He is it. I 100% guarantee that if you would have paused time, all of them would have answered that. And if you would have also in that paused time frame second asked all of those disciples on that boat, are you scared right now that you're not going to make it out of this storm and you don't know what that figure over there on the water is? Are you scared right now? All of them would have answered yes. The fear in this particular situation that they are in was greater than their faith, but both are present. Okay? So I want to debunk this lie that, oh, if you're afraid, you don't have faith. And if you have faith, you have no fear. I don't believe that for a second. Both can be present. It's which one is at the forefront. And what was happening to me this week was I was letting for that moment where I was really having this raw, authentic moment, and I let fear overcome me. I yielded. I love this verbiage. Yielded to fear. I yielded to fear, and so I had more fear than I had faith in that moment. I had more fear in what my financial situation is going to look like, what my health situation is going to look like, than I did have faith that God is still Jehovah Rapha, that God still is Jehovah Jireh. That is what was going on in that moment. Jesus says, have courage. It's really me. I am. So I actually argue that faith and fear can exist at the same time. One is always stronger than the other, but both can exist in the same space at the same time. What I don't believe can exist at the same space at the same time is fear and courage. Even if you go back to Joshua, how many times does God repeat to Joshua and the people, do not be afraid, be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid, be strong and courageous. That message is repeated. I do not believe that you can have fear and courage at the same time. Courage is the absence of fear. Okay? Faith. I know it's been taught so many times faith is the absence of fear. I do not believe that. Again, I'm debunking that. I don't think that is biblically accurate. And in any experience, if you break down your personal life, other people's personal experiences, I don't believe that that's true. But again, what I do believe is true is that you cannot have courage and you cannot have fear in the same room together at the same time. You either have one or the other. So he's saying, don't yield to fear, have courage. And then the last sentence is him saying why they should have courage. It's really me. I am. And if that I am sounds familiar to you, your brain, it's probably thrown up a little flag going back to Exodus. Sound familiar? Like a burning bush moment? Where Moses says, Who are you? Who should I tell these people that you are, that I'm talking to? I am that I am. And this is the same I am, the living God. An obvious statement. It says that Jesus is the great I am and there is nothing to be afraid of. The same statement made to Moses at the burning bush. I am. That means, and this is why God is so cool. I am means that I am whatever you need me to be in this moment. I am here. I've showed up. I am. That covers and encompasses all things. You need me to be a healer? You need me to be a physician right now? I'm Rapha. You need me to be the comforter right now? I am Jehovah Shalom, the God of peace. You need me to be a provider right now? I am Jehovah Jireh, the one who provides. I am any and all things. He's also saying, I am the creator of these winds and these waves, Elohim. So then we see, then he came closer, climbed into the boat, and immediately the stormy wind became still. Because I'm the creator of these things, because I ordered these things, I can also order them to shut up. I can also order them to be silent and still. Because I created them. I am. So he says, don't yield to fear, have courage. And the last sentence is why you should not yield to fear and why you should have courage. Because it's really me, Jesus is saying. He's saying, I am. I am capable of all things. And what it's then talking about in them having doubting hearts, or like I said, the NIV says that they had hardened hearts. The hardening, this was very intriguing to me when I read this, because I'm like, these again are disciples who are with you day after day, week after week, month after month. What do you mean their hearts are hardened? You hear hardened heart and you think, if you're like me, you go to Pharaoh in Exodus, that God hardened his heart. Now, this isn't saying that God hardened the disciples' hearts. This is just saying that they had hardened hearts and had not grasped the authority and power over all things, in spite of even not just having witnessed the miracle of feeding the 5,000, but they actively participated in it. And again, I love that the TPT breaks this down, that they actually had the authority over all the night, which I think this is what's wild to me when you stop and think about this. And again, I'm saying every situation is a little different. God shows up in different ways, in different spaces at different times, and the way that his timeline moves and works is for a very specific purpose. But when I'm looking at the scripture, and in verse 47, it's saying night fell and the wind came against the disciples. Jesus sees this. However, Jesus does not move, does not come to them until the fourth watch of the night, as it's almost morning. So this is at least, benefit of the doubt, probably between, I'm going to say minimum of like 4 hours, maximum of maybe like 8 hours, that they are not making headway, that they are straining at the oars, barely keeping themselves in the boat afloat on this lake, that Jesus does not come and rescue them. Okay? And the timing of this, and Jesus is, I believe, in the little bit of the footnote context, is proving this point, that he did not immediately come to them, because the point of the whole feeding of the 5,000 for the disciples was supposed to be, you have the authority to actually do these things. You can put your hands to this and it will be so. And like the footnote explains, they had all the authority that they needed, that they could have silenced those winds and those waves themselves. Not because they are anything special, but because Jesus had given them the authority that he carried. It was now, he was trying to give that to them. And so I think the reason that Jesus waited as long as he waited was because he was like, come on, guys, somebody just have enough faith to say it. Somebody just have enough audacity to command, to pray the prayer and command that the winds and the waves be silent. Come on, guys, all night. And honestly, here's the thing. We don't know this. There's no biblical proof of this. But what's interesting is verse 46 says, so he dispersed the crowd, said goodbye to his disciples, then slipped away to pray on the mountain. On the mountain praying is where Jesus was this entire time. From the moment that we see that the winds are picking up and he could see that they were straining, to the moment that then Jesus has now come onto the water and is walking across the water towards the disciples. I would be shocked if at least part of his prayer that night was not for his disciples. Just a thought. I have no biblical context to this. I'm not trying to add to scripture. I'm just trying to, in a very realistic sense, potentially give an option of a gap that we have, because the scripture does not say what he was praying for on that mountain. I would be shocked that if in part what he was praying for was not for that his disciples to be bold in faith, to be audacious, to command and recognize the authority that he had given them to be able to command the winds and the waves to be still. So this is why this is so fascinating to me, because God did not harden their hearts. God did not give them doubting hearts. They were still wrestling with between their humanness and our very limited ability to see things how God sees them, and in the way that Jesus solves problems. The way that the kingdom of heaven solves problems versus how we think problems should be solved. They're telling Jesus, oh, so we're going to go and spend a small fortune on buying food for 5,000 people. Jesus is like, no, we're going to just multiply what we already have and give thanks and break it. Those are two radically different solutions to the same problem. The disciples are like, we're just going to strain at the oars and keep trying to get to the other side of the ocean, or this lake in the middle of the storm. And then Jesus comes and sits on the boat and silences the wind and the waves. Two radically different solutions to the same problem. So what I'm saying and what I'm telling myself and what I've had to walk myself through this week is the fact that my solution, how I think this should go, how I think this should be resolved, I'm going to say, actually, you know what? Shoot, I'm going to just say 10 out of 10 times, not how God's going to resolve it. God's not going to show up necessarily looking like God to me in the middle of me straining at the oars. I might think that he's something else. And I may be inclined to yield to fear. And then the Lord, every single time, I don't doubt this. It's not, again, it's not that they didn't grasp that it was him walking on the water that was necessarily the problem. They didn't grasp his authority and power over all things, and that he had imparted that to them. That's what they were not grasping. So again, I say, them feeling scared, them feeling fear is not a sin. But their hearts being hardened, even after not only just witnessing, but actively participating in a miracle, Jesus is trying to soften that. That's why he waited. That's why he did this in this way. I truly believe, this is why he set this up like this, because he was like, they're still not getting it. And there's things that us now in 2025, we're still not getting it. So Jesus said, okay, I see them straining at the oars. I'm going to let them go. I'm going to let them remember who lives in them, that they have the presence and the power and all of the authority that I have through the Holy Spirit that resides in them. Greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. I'm going to give them time to remember that. I'm going to give them time to exercise that. But it's going to hit a breaking point, and I'm going to come for my children, and I'm going to come intervene. And when I do, they might not even recognize that it's me coming to rescue them. But I'm going to tell them not to yield to fear. And I'm going to tell them to have courage, not because of anything that they have or anything that they can do, but because it is me. And I am all things at all times. What do you need? You need the storm to calm down? I'm going to climb in your boat, and the winds and the waves are going to be silenced. And that's why you have courage. Because it's me showing up. That's what he's saying. That's the invitation. Again, I don't see him here condemning them for being afraid. He's trying to encourage them not to be. And I had to, and that was my point I hit a point / the Holy Spirit probably helped me along to hit the point of being like, what else am I going to do? What, am I just going to sit in this and rot in this and live in this fear? What is that going to do other than have me continually straining at these oars and not making any headway. That's not going to get me anywhere. And what's that, like Matthew 6 or 7, I believe. It's like as Jesus is preaching on the Sermon on the Mount, and he's like, do not be worried. Like, for what can any of you by worrying add like a minute to your life? Like, there's no point in worrying. And so it's very easy to yield to fear. And again, you're not wrong to be afraid of something. But again, what is your response? What is your reaction? And going back real quick to the point of, I don't think courage and fear can sit in the same space at the same time. The question becomes, when fear is great, the question is, what are you putting your courage / your confidence in? Because I think every time fear shows up and is more prevalent than faith, what you are saying, without actually saying it, but in your response, you're saying this thing is greater. This thing is more powerful than God. What you're basically doing is you're putting your confidence and your courage in the thing that is producing fear in you. So the unknown of my health diagnosis, the unknown of my financial situation because of this, I am putting my courage and my confidence, what I'm actually saying, in that. I'm putting it in the unknown of those two things, rather than having the faith to put my courage and my confidence in the Lord, that He is still good, that He is still trustworthy, that He is still Rapha, that He is still Jireh. That's what I'm saying when I do that. So that's why I'm arguing that courage and fear cannot coexist in the same space at the same time. Because you're saying, it's a misplacement of courage. So instead of having courage because I am has showed up, as we just saw in Mark 6, you are having courage that the unknown thing has shown up. And that's where you're putting all of your confidence, is actually not having any confidence at all, because it's the unknown thing, which is triggering fear, which is, instead of putting it in the known thing, the sure thing, which triggers faith. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. So I just wanted to touch on that. But all this to say, I was brought to this morning, and again, there's so much in here I could go into. But that might be another day, another pod, another day. But I have to read. I cannot talk about fear and the temptation to yield to it, and how we respond and react to it without reading Psalm 91. I think hands down, without a doubt, without a question, my favorite psalm. Okay. So Psalm 91, and a lot of you probably know this. Some of you might even know the first chunk of this by heart. This is a TPT though, so the wording's a little different, but I like it. So this is all of Psalm 91. It's titled Safe and Secure. When you abide under the shadow of Shaddai, you are hidden in the strength of God Most High. He's the hope that holds me and the stronghold to shelter me, the only God for me and my great confidence. He will rescue you from every hidden trap of the enemy, and He will protect you from false accusation and any deadly curse. His massive arms are wrapped around you, protecting you. You can run under His covering of majesty and hide. His arms of faithfulness are a shield, keeping you from harm. You will never worry about an attack of demonic forces at night, nor have to fear a spirit of darkness coming against you. Don't fear a thing. Whether by night or by day, demonic danger will not trouble you, nor will the powers of evil be launched against you. Even in a time of disaster with thousands and thousands killed, you will remain unscathed and unharmed. You will be a spectator as the wicked perish in judgment, for they will be paid back for what they have done. When we live our lives within the shadow of God Most High, our secret hiding place, we will always be shielded from harm. How then could evil prevail against us or disease infect us? God sends angels with special orders to protect you wherever you go, defending you from all harm. If you walk into a trap, they'll be there for you and keep you from stumbling. You'll even walk unharmed among the fiercest powers of darkness, trampling every one of them beneath your feet. For here's what the Lord has spoken to me. Because you loved me, delighted in me, and have been loyal to my name, I will greatly protect you. I will answer your cry for help every time you pray, and you will feel my presence in your time of trouble. I will deliver you and bring you honor. I will satisfy you with a full life and with all that I do for you will enjoy the fullness of my salvation. That is Psalm 91. That is the words of the Lord. And that is sure, and that is firm, and that is a promise that if you love him, you delight in him, and you are loyal to his name, it says he will greatly protect you. He will answer your cry for help every time you pray, and you will feel his presence in your time of trouble. Now, what I want to make sure I say is just like in Mark 6 when he says, "It is me, I am." And we talked about how powerful those two words are. I am. This psalm starts out, when you abide under the shadow of Shaddai. Shaddai is a Hebrew word that is usually translated as Lord Almighty or the all-sufficient one. All-sufficient one. So, when you're in the middle, when you're in the midst of fear, when you're in the midst of doubt, and there's a storm, and you're straining at the oars, and you're trying to make headway, and you see something, a figure on the water, and you don't know what it is. You don't know if it's friend or foe. You don't know if it's Jesus. You don't know what it is. You don't know how you're going to get out of this. You don't know how this is going to turn out. Shaddai, the all-sufficient one. If you are able to abide under his shadow, if you are hidden in the strength of God the Most High, the all-sufficient one, that means he is sufficient enough to be. This is how he is. I am in the all-sufficient one. Parallel, right there. Same God, same nature, same character. What do you need? I am sufficient in all things. I am enough in all things. I am enough for your finances. I am enough for your health. I am enough for your marriage. I am enough for your calling that I have asked you to do hard things. I am enough. That is what he's saying in both of these, Psalm 91 and Mark 6. I am enough. I am the all-sufficient one. What do you need? I am your source. What do you need? I have enough. If you put, and I love that it specifically says, what verse was that? I got to find it. Oh, right here. Verse 2. He's the hope that holds me and the stronghold to shelter me, the only God for me and my great confidence. If he is truly your great confidence and you keep your confidence in him, that means your courage is in him, and that means that fear cannot override or triumph over your faith. Faith is the things hoped for, but not yet seen. How do we maintain faith? We maintain courage and confidence in who God says he is. In the fact that he says, I am the all-sufficient one. I am enough. We maintain courage and confidence in who God says he is. That is how we maintain faith over fear. So when you are like me and you have a moment where you come into agreement with fear and you are putting more confidence and more courage in the unknown than the known God, and you have a moment where you do that, again, not because you don't want to believe, not because you don't love Jesus, but because life gets hard. And the best of the best Christians have moments of doubt. The best of the best believers have moments where they're like, I don't know how we're going to get out of this. I don't see a way through this. The reason that and I believe, again, it was in partnership with the Holy Spirit, but the reason that I came to the moment of I have to worship right now is because I could not stay in that place of fear. I could not further come into agreement and let fear take root and let fear continue to be bigger than my faith. So I needed to worship as an act of me, again, reprioritizing and remembering and putting God on the throne as the all-sufficient one, as the Lord of Lords, as God over everything. You have to have these moments where you stop and you say, whatever this ailment is in my body is not bigger than my God. Whatever this lack of provision in my bank account is right now is not bigger than my God. These things are not bigger than him. They are not more than him. They are not I am. Do you notice that? They're one thing. There's a health concern. Oh, there's a lack of finances. They're one thing. He goes, I am all things. I am the all-sufficient one. Fear cannot solve your problem. All it is going to do is, again, take deeper root into your soul. It's going to provoke deeper feelings of doubt, of mistrust, of hopelessness, of anger. That is all fear does. That's the fruit that fear produces. The fruit that faith produces is assuredness, the hope of things not yet seen. There's hope, there's assuredness, there's light, there's, I dare to say almost like a mystery being revealed to you, another quality of God, another characteristic of him that you may not have seen before. The disciples, until they were out in that storm on the lake, had never seen their Savior walk on the water. The Israelites, as they were escaping from the Egyptian army, facing the Red Sea, had never seen a sea split in two before with dry ground in the middle of it. They had never seen that before. There are going to be these moments that produce a revelation to a mystery of the kingdom of heaven that you otherwise would have never seen before. There's a fruit of, I would even say, faithfulness, of fortifying of your faith that happens when you give in to confidence and courage in the Lord instead of to fear. So again, I say all this and I share all this to say we are human, and here on this side of heaven, we are in our human bodies and with our human understanding and brains and our limited knowledge of things, and things can be scary and things can be overwhelming and things can cause anxiety, okay? But the reason the Lord says, do not be afraid, do not be anxious, do not worry about anything. And the fact that it says that here in verse 6 in Psalm 91 too, do not fear a thing, whether by night or by day. Do not fear anything. The only way to do that, and again, the emotion of fear is an indicator in your body, more I would say in your spirit, that you need to take a moment to redirect your confidence and your courage in the Lord instead of into this unknown thing. That's what it's indicating. Hey, whoa, we're feeling afraid. Okay, why are we feeling afraid? Now, what am I going to do about it? What is going to be my response? My response is going to be, whether that is through worship, whether that is through reading these scriptures and letting them wash over you and meditating on them, or whether that is praying, whatever that looks like for you in that moment, there needs to be a moment, because that is an indicator that there has to be a redirection of your courage and your confidence in the all-sufficient one. That's all that's saying. And the Lord is not going to condemn you for that. Again, where I think we start to get into problems, where the Lord is desperately wanting to like seek you and like, well, not like seek you, but like he's seeking after you. In the fact of, I think we get into danger when we ruminate, when we let that fear take deep root, where we didn't pay attention to that indicator, that little flag going off, and we didn't take a moment to prioritize and re-put him on the throne above all these things where he belongs, where we didn't reassign our confidence and our courage to him. Okay? And that happens sometimes. I have not always caught it right away. I have ignored that indicator. The Lord is still good. Mark 6, the Lord is still faithful to come and get you. He is still faithful to show up, even if you're scared of him because you don't even realize it's him at first, to get into your boat and to silence the storm that you have been in. And it's not out of condemnation. It's, again, he was trying to build faith in their heart. He was trying to soften their hardened hearts. He was trying to make them understand who he is and the authority that he has, that he had given to them. It was for their betterment. And that's what I love. We talk about this all the time on the podcast. I know my episode with Faith, if you watch it, we were talking about life and life to the full and life abundantly. And God came to give you life and life to the full. And then verse 16 in Psalm 91, I will satisfy you with a full life and with all that I do for you. For you will enjoy the fullness of my salvation. That is what the Lord has for you. And he's just saying, hey, you don't have to put your confidence and your courage in this thing that you're afraid of. You can put it in me. This is the better thing. We're going to get through this together. I'm going to be with you regardless. I'm going to come step in your boat regardless. I'm going to calm this storm at some point regardless. But your response, like we could get you out of the storm sooner. Or I could be in your boat sooner and we could like ride this together. Like he's just saying like, I am the better thing. And man, God, just please help us abide under your shadow and hide in your strength. And remember that you, Psalm 18 says like, you are our fortress, our strong tower, our refuge. And then Psalm 91, you are our hiding place. And God, I just pray that we like are able to like come back to that place of I dwell in the shelter of the Most High, that I am under the shadow and the wings of Shaddai, the all-sufficient one. And he is protecting me and he is guarding me. And I don't need to be afraid. I don't need to be afraid if his wings are over me. I think sometimes too what happens is we start to get afraid because we have either like left the shelter of the wings or we have kind of mentally and spiritually detoured where we don't think that we are under his wings. And I think it's like I think of like a baby bird. Like they need their mom, they need their nest. They need to be under the shelter and protection of their mother. They need to be under her feathers for warmth, for sustainability, to live. And I think sometimes we are under his wings for some time and then we're like, okay, no, I got this. Life's good. okay, I'm gonna go out on my own now. And then like we take a couple steps out of the nest, quote unquote, out from under his wings, out from under his shadow. And then things get hard and things get scary. And God, thank you, Jesus, that you are so patient with us, that you allow us time and again to run back. So that is my hope and my prayer, because inevitably you're going to step out from under the shadow of the wing. Inevitably, it happens to all of us, not even purposefully. I think a lot of us, we are well-meaning, we love God, our intentions are not poor, but we are still in a human earthly vessel body, and we miss the mark all the time. All have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And I just pray that our response when we realize, or if we realize, oh my gosh, I don't think I'm under the wing, run back to the shelter of the Most High, run back under his wing. I have to do it all the time. Again, whether that's just like a mental, like I have to sit there and like be like, I'm choosing to go back. I'm choosing to run back under his wing and under his shadow. But I just pray for you and for me, for all of us, that no matter how many times we give in to fear, no matter how many times we yield to like this thing that is not God, that is not from God, and we mess up or we make a mistake or we leave his wing and we are like, crap, I shouldn't have done that. I just pray that we would just immediately, like as soon as that conviction hits us, as soon as that that knowledge and acknowledgement of what just happened and what we had done, I just pray that we would return, that we would just run back under his wing again. He is so patient and so loving that he will let you come back under his wing. Okay, let's try this again. Let's try, okay, this next hardship's going to come. This next wave is going to hit. This next storm might arise. Okay, I went through this before and I didn't put my courage and my confidence in him and I let fear overtake me. Okay, I know what, okay, God, help me, because I know what to do this time, but help me have the stamina to actually do it. Help me when the waves are a lot, when I'm straining at the oars, when I'm not making any headway. Help me to maintain my courage and my confidence in you, the all-sufficient one. Jesus, help us. That's all I have for you guys today. I pray that that blesses you. I pray that that encourages you. I pray, oh Lord, that we stay under your wings and under the shelter of El Shaddai. I love you guys. I pray and hope that you look at those scriptures for yourself. Again, that's Mark 6 and Psalm 91 specifically that I referenced today. If you are feeling fear, there's a lot of scriptures that you can go to. Joshua is another good one. Talking about being strong and courageous and do not be afraid. Again, Matthew 6 and 7, where Jesus is talking about like, I provide for the sparrows. How much more would I will provide for you, my children? Do not worry about anything. You can't add a minute to your life. Like all of those, like there's so many scriptures on fear. And if you need even more, honestly, I don't have them all memorized at the top of my head. Google like scriptures about fear or like not being afraid. And meditate on those. Ask the Holy Spirit to come in. Ask the Lord to like help you overcome yielding to fear. Worship him. Worship is a great way, again, to reprioritize and reset him as Lord over all things. That he is bigger than anything you are afraid of. That he has overcome victoriously anything that you are afraid of. He's defeated death. He's defeated the kingdom of darkness and Satan and his goons. And he has defeated sickness and disease. He has defeated all of that. He has triumphed over all of that. So worship, pray, meditate on these scriptures to help reset that priority. That faith is greater than your fear. And not faith in you, not faith in any mortal person or being, not faith in anything that you physically think that you can rely on, but faith in the all-sufficient one. Confidence and courage that God is I am, the great I am. Okay. I love you guys. I pray you have a blessed week. And I will see you again on another episode in the future of For the One Podcast. Thanks for joining.
Cute, but dumb. Cute, but stupid.